Did you know that washing chicken runs deeper than most people realize? To some, it's just a habit. To others, it's a running joke. But what looks like water running in a sink is actually history in motion, a ritual carried from 1619 all the way to today. This is not just poultry prep. This is memory, survival, and dignity passed down through generations. Let's take it back to the early 17th century in 1619, when the first enslaved Africans were brought to Virginia. They did not arrive empty-handed. They carried centuries of wisdom from their homelands: how to farm, how to preserve meat with smoke and salt, how to clean food before it ever touched fire, how to season with herbs and spices that healed the body as much as they flavored the meal. These were not tricks, they were sciences. In America, those sciences were tested against starvation. The master's family ate the choice birds. The enslaved were left with scraps: the necks, the backs, the gizzards, sometimes meat already souring in the southern heat. Food became another form of punishment. And yet, in the hands of the enslaved, scraps did not stay scraps. They were rinsed, scrubbed with salt, soaked in vinegar, cut with citrus if it could be found. They were seasoned until they carried life. That act, the rinse, the scrub, the seasoning, was not optional. It was survival. Generations later, the ritual still held. After emancipation, Reconstruction, and Jim Crow kept black families at the bottom of the food chain. Fresh meat was rare. Refrigeration was rarer. Washing and seasoning became a rule, not a suggestion. The kitchen sink was where mothers and grandmothers protected their families from sickness and from shame. Even when the Great Migration carried black families north into cities like Chicago and Detroit, the sound of running water over poultry remained the same. The vinegar stayed, the lemon stayed, the seasoning stayed. But while black kitchens held onto memory, white kitchens were being reshaped by institutions. In the early 20th century, domestic science programs at white-led universities rebranded cooking as laboratory work. Cleanliness was measured not by tradition, but by textbooks. By the time the USDA issued its guidelines, the official word was clear: do not wash your chicken. Rinsing, they claimed, spread salmonella. White households, with access to refrigeration and a trust in government science, followed those rules. Black households, excluded from those institutions and carrying scars of survival, did not. Two Americas emerged, one that trusted pamphlets and one that trusted memory. And so the jokes began. Even now, people laugh about how white folks don't wash their chicken. It shows up in comedy routines, on Black Twitter, in family conversations that spark knowing looks. It's funny, but it's also cultural commentary. And that divide still shows up today, not just in kitchens, but in pop culture. Even celebrities weigh in. Sherry Shepherd once joked about washing chicken on national television, and the audience roared. To some, it sounded funny. But to others, it was all facts.
There was an article on marthastewart.com. Should you wash your chicken before cooking it? Okay, so the article says that you should never wash your chicken. The water splashes and it actually spreads bacteria. That's what it says. I don't know if I trust you about that, Martha Stewart. You know who I want to ask, who I trust? I need to ask Patty LaBelle. Martha Stewart, I'm very sorry. Respectfully, Martha Stewart, for me and my household, we wash our chicken.
Behind every joke is a truth. One community inherited rules from the USDA, the other inherited rituals from slavery. That difference doesn't just season the food, it marks the line between whose knowledge was validated and whose was dismissed. Walk into any black kitchen today, and the ritual lives on. Big Mama at the sink, lowering raw chicken into vinegar and water. Her granddaughter watching asks why. Because this is how you do it right, she replies, no hesitation. No USDA pamphlet needed, no institutional stamp of approval, just the authority of memory, carried through centuries. The child might not yet understand, but her hands will remember when the time comes. That is how knowledge survives, not always in books, but in the rituals we repeat. So when people shrug and say washing chicken doesn't matter, they're missing the story. The sink has always been more than a sink. It's where scraps became sustenance, where humiliation was scrubbed into dignity, where the lessons of 1619 never stopped flowing. Washing chicken is not superstition. It is ancestral memory, still alive, still practiced, still deeper than most will ever realize. Scope News tells the truth. Here are the facts. Testimonies preserved in the Library of Congress. Slave narratives describe how enslaved cooks survived on scraps, washing and seasoning poultry to make it safe. Jessica B. Harris's High on the Hog documents African foodways that shaped Black survival cooking. Frederick Douglass Opie's Hog and Hominy traces the practices of food preservation under slavery. USDA food safety guidelines from the 20th century explicitly warned against rinsing poultry, highlighting the divide between institutional advice and cultural inheritance. Early home economics texts, such as Mary Hinman Abel's Science in the Kitchen, 1892, show how white households were taught scientific cooking, while Black families held on to ancestral survival knowledge. Together, these sources reveal how washing chicken became one of the clearest examples of history still living in the everyday. Legal disclaimer: this content is created for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes. Scope News makes every effort to ensure accuracy and historical grounding in the facts presented, but errors or omissions may occur. Viewer discretion is advised, as this content discusses sensitive cultural and historical themes tied to slavery, systemic racism, food scarcity, and generational trauma. Thank you for watching Scope News.